Hello, friends. Welcome to this month's Grow Deep Dive. My name is Elle. This is Linda Moon. Hello, Linda Moon.
Hey, everyone.
Wonderful to see you. Friends, today that we are walking through another month of Grow Kids curriculum. Super pumped. This month we are going to be talking about a series that is called Unusual, and we're going to talk about more of that in a second. But we're also going to give you kind of a preview of all of the series that are coming up in Volume 5 of Grow Curriculum. You might already know this, so there are tons of other videos you can watch to get like an even deeper look at what's coming in for Volume 5, but we'll give you just kind of like a high level little sneak preview. But that's the idea. And in case you are new to these deep dives, basically we're just trying to give you a sneak peek at what is happening inside of Grow Curriculum. If you don't use Grow, that is totally okay. The idea is to give you a look so that you can maybe steal some ideas if you want, feel free. And if you are using Grow, then the idea is to give you kind of like the expert level of how to make the best use of all of the things that we're giving you. So that's the deal. Linda, are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Great, let's do it. So I'm going to share my screen here because we have a series to check out. And like I said, it is the series called Unusual, and it is a 4-week series about the life of David. Do you want to give us a quick look at what we're talking about here, Linda?
Yes. So the elementary curriculum is written by our friend Esther Moreno. Make sure you check her out if you're here. Hello. And the preschool version is written by Karen Earn, both fabulous writers and have been writing for Grow for some time. So we're really excited to share what they wrote for you. This month's series is called Unusual, as we were saying, and the theme is all like weird animals, like weird, unusual, unique animals. And I think there's just a really wide range of things you can do with that. You can do like made up animals, like unicorns, or you could do just like just exotic animals.
You're telling me these aren't real, Linda?
I'm so sorry.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry you had to find out this way.
What about dragons? Are dragons real animals? Did those ever exist?
Are penguins real? We have to look at all of these.
We'll Google it later. Okay, go ahead. Yes. Go ahead. So fake animals or real animals, whatever you want.
Yes, fake animals, real animals, exotic animals, or just animals that exhibit strange and unusual behavior, which is something that we also talk about in this series. So you can do so much with this. So if you ever feel like, I don't have wacky animals to talk about, like there's just a wealth of things you can do with that. So ready to dive into the content?
Yes. Yeah, let's do it. So what in the world do weird animals have to do with David, Linda?
That is an interesting question. Well, David was a little bit strange, mostly just the things that we're learning about the story of David is just a lot of these words that start with the prefix un. And so those are our big ideas, just how God loves and works in unusual ways. And I think that is what we're talking about each week. So in the first week, we're talking about how David was selected as the new king. And as you all know, he was not the most probable choice. And yet God chose him.
Yeah, he was an unusual.
Yes, it was an unusual choice. And so the big idea for that week is that God uses unlikely people. And then for week 2, we're talking about how David was dancing. This is his famous undignified dance in front of everybody, to the point where he lost articles of clothing, which is a bit unusual, especially for a king. Not the most regal kind of way to do things. But we are talking about how he was just so joyful that God gave him unexplainable joy that he was able to do this in front of a crowd and then not care. And moving on over to week 3, we're talking about how God promised that David's son Solomon, or a future child of his, will eventually be the one to build the temple that David so desperately wanted to build. And I know this is not a story that we normally talk about with kids, but we wanted to show that sometimes things don't work out the way that you really want them to or expect them to, or in a time frame that you want them to. And so we're talking about how God does unexpected things. And that can be just a host of things, which we can talk about once we get to week 3. And then for our final week of Unusual, we're talking about David and Bathsheba. I know it's a famous story, but also another one that we tried not to talk about with kids because there are some pretty adult themes in there. But we want to emphasize not so much on the deed, but more so that even through it all, God's love for David didn't change. And so we're talking about how God's love is unchangeable.
I love
So
it.
those are your 4 un-SAT words.
That's great. That's awesome. So yeah, so we're talking unusual because David led a pretty unusual life. So
Mhm.
this will be a really, really good series. Super pumped. And the memory verse this month is, let me scroll down here. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. You know, God thinks in ways that are a little bit unusual to our brains. So wonderful tie-in. Love it a ton. Awesome. Well, let's dive in. Let's start with week 1. I'll scroll down to the beginning of the lesson. We've got some hacks, we've got some outlines, all sorts of good stuff for you in here, friends. So here we go. Week 1, we're talking about how God uses unlikely people. And as Linda just said, we're talking about the time that David actually became king. So walk us through it, Linda. What do you want to highlight?
Okay, well, the first thing right off the bat is we have an activity called Unusual Charades. And, we do a lot of charades, I feel like, in ministry because it's just the easiest game to put together. But here's a little bit of an unusual spin on it, in which is you get to put, I think it's a box full of different types of animals. And like I said, get creative with those animals. They can be like cows or they can be like, blobfish, whatever you got. And then the other box, you have a bunch of actions like brushing your teeth or like, skipping. And so the kids have to come up, and I think it's 2 kids that come up, and one kid has to act out the animal, and then the other kid has to act out the action. And then the group has to figure out like, oh, it's a shark brushing their teeth. So a little bit different than normal charades. But also the preteen hack for this activity is like, why not just meld the two for the more advanced charades people and just put them all together, like a shark brushing their teeth, and then have the kid come out and act out a shark brushing their teeth. I'm not sure how you would do that, but I understand kids are more creative than I am.
They are.
or you can have do reverse charades where like one kid has to guess and everybody else has to act out a shark brushing their teeth. So that would be really exciting to try out, I think. And like if you're ever bored of normal charades, here's the unusual way to go.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like that's a really important skill set for ministry leaders. How do you take a game we all know and love and just give it like a little bit of a tweak to make it new and fun? So those are great ideas. Love it.
Yes, that's something we really treasure here at Grow.
It is. You don't
Also,
need
I'm
to
going to tally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tally how many times I say the word unusual today.
Perfect. Great, 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 great.
So far, I think I'm at something like 27.
So good. All right. What do you want to highlight next in week 1?
Okay, well, I want to jump over to the so what section, and this is where we normally do most of our teaching and how we explain the Bible story. And so in our Bible story, we're talking about how David was selected kind of last after Samuel had seen like a long line of more eligible brothers. And I like this note that our author put in the instructions where we're asking volunteers to come up to pretend to be these like perfect paragons of kingliness. And it says, make sure you include girl volunteers too. And I think that was a very cool note to add, to be like, yeah, just because, historically they were brothers,
Right.
girls can participate. That's cool.
Seriously. That's wonderful. Love it.
So
Esther,
I love that.
note. That's great. Awesome.
Yes. And then moving along, right after that, we do a big idea reveal. For those of you who are not familiar with how Grow works after the Bible story, we do a big reveal of the main takeaway for the day. And we call that the big idea reveal. And for every week in this series, we have an interesting character named Brick. Again, can be male or female. And Brick is kind of one of those like macho workout characters. And we put in a description of how you might want to dress up this character, but feel free to branch out and do whatever you want just to make this person feel very formidable and invincible. And the whole point is that they're not. And every week, this person will be trumped by some child who gets to say, hey, like, I am the unusual choice, but God uses me anyway. So I think it'll be really fun. Yeah, it's really cute.
So cute. Love it a ton. All right. What else do you want to highlight here?
And I think the last thing I want to talk about for week one is I just love this. It's not a huge thing, but there's one module called "What is an Underdog?" and it's a question, and it's just a way to get kids to think about unlikely people and choices, and just to think about it in ways that they probably haven't thought of before. And like, what is an underdog, and how and some people root for the underdog, and what does it feel like being the underdog, and why do God why does God choose underdogs? And there's just a lot of discussion elements that can come out of this. And I feel that what you can do to enhance it is maybe even show a clip of a movie or even like a sporting game, whatever, just to have kids to identify which are the underdogs in each scene. And I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. That's really fun. And friends, if you are new to Grow and you're wondering what all of these like fancy colored columns are, everything we do inside of Grow, we try to really use like a lot of different learning styles and lots of different interactive elements. So we have all of these different color coded things. So like questions are always blue, object lessons are always green. And it's kind of just like an easy little shorthand for you to look at your lesson and be like, you know what? My lessons are kind of always blue and green, and that's kind of boring. Maybe I should add a new color, like a video or a reflection time. So that's our little shorthand for you. Feel free to steal it and use it, even if you're not using Grow, if you're writing stuff from scratch. All right. Anything else from week one, Linda?
No, just wanted to point out that if you go over to the preschool version, some of these activities are replicated, but in a more preschool friendly fashion. And on that note, like check out the coloring page for this week. And every week there's just a strange little animal in the corner that's teaching the Bible story. And the Bible story is supposed to kind of look like a sticker page. That's why they have these outlines around them, or flannel graphs for those of you old enough to remember what that is.
Love it. Love it.
And so I think these coloring pages are so fun.
Yeah, that's super cute. Love it. Oh, is that like, what is that? Is that like a squirrel dragon cat?
Yes, this is a made up animal. I mean, it's totally real, just like unicorns.
Yeah. I was like, I think I've seen this in my dreams or something, but I like it. It's really great. Awesome. All right, let's move on to week two. I'm going to scroll through all of these hacks and wonderful goodies that we have here. Oops, scrolled a little too far. Got a little too excited. Okay, so in week two, we're talking about how God gives unexplainable joy. And this is David dancing. What do you want to look at here, Linda?
Yeah, and I think I mentioned earlier how when we said that when we're talking about unique animals, it can be, normal animals or more common animals just doing weird things. And so this first activity here that's called Rhinoceros Stomp is one of those things where we're pointing out how rhinoceros feet are just unusually small compared to their enormous bodies. And so this activity is like a balloon stomp game, but I thought that little tidbit was really fun. I also just wanted to point out for those of you who have kids who have latex allergies or maybe like just sensitive to noises, you can totally swap this out and do something different. They can just go around and play tag, or just encourage them to do a lot of heavy stomping as long as you're not disturbing anybody downstairs. So I like that fact. I thought that was so fun.
Yeah, that's really, really adorable. And again, if you're not familiar with Grow, we do give you all of these hacks throughout your lesson. So this one has a special needs hack for kids who might have some sensitivities. And then we also have, some preteen hacks. And in our preschool curriculum, we also have toddler hacks as well. So make sure you're checking that out. It's just this idea, kind of like what we talked about with the games, that you can just tweak things like a tiny little bit to make them more effective for different groups of people. So that's what we give you. All right, what else do you want to look at here?
And then the activity right after that, called Explain It, is really cool. It's not earth-shatteringly new, but it just fits in so perfectly with what we're talking about today, which is that God gives unexplainable joy. So how better to explain that than to have them try to explain something? And then just to say that, yeah, great job trying to explain all these words without using the words that are there. Like when you say, like when you play taboo or catchphrase or something like that. But also there are so many things that you can't explain, like the color blue. Like, how do you explain that? And then the point there is, just because you can't explain it doesn't mean it's not there, doesn't mean it's not a construct, and kind of that leads in nicely to today's Bible story.
Love it. Oh, that's so fun. I want to hear kids
And
try to explain what blue is. That sounds great.
I know. I like, if you guys do that, please take videos and share them with us, because I love kids saying things. My kid, my older kid is 7, and he's super snarky and he says the weirdest things, and I jot them down. And so I can only imagine you all have very similar kids in your ministry with whom we want to all share the blessing.
Yes, please. That is one of our greatest joys. Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think we can release a curriculum just based on things kids say.
Probably. Do we have a curriculum written by children? That sounds like it would be really crazy.
That would be super fun.
Okay. Well,
Okay. And so there's a lot of, sorry, there are a lot of activities here just related to how to identify joy and how we can have lasting joy, and how joy is regardless of circumstances and whatnot. But I kind of want to take us to the small group activity, which is called Boxes of Joy. And we do provide a printable for this that kids can decorate and cut out. We do recommend that you print it out on cardstock or some sort of thicker paper so that the boxes actually stay more intact. And I just wanted to point this out because the other day I was talking to somebody, and they said that sometimes when they get down, what they do is they take screenshots of things that people have said to them that are just really kind and really affirming. And then they put it in a folder called Good Things. And then whenever they're having a not so great day, they can go back and look at those things. And I felt like, wow, this is kind of like an analog version of that, where kids can just write down things that bring them joy. And especially in times when they're not really feeling it, they can open up this box and just get these bursts of joy. And I think that's really nice.
that's super cute. Oh, I love it. Yeah, this does seem like this would work better on cardstock. You're right. That is a good note. Amazing. Well, that's cool. We got a little printable and a coloring book. I like this little friend. He's like a monkey lion with antenna or something.
I know.
I'm here for it.
I know. Great. Our illustrator just went with it, and I love it.
So great.
We should have a contest to have people name them. That'd be cool.
We should. I support it. Run with it, Linda. Do it.
All right, we'll do.
Awesome. So let's look at week 3 now. So in here, we're talking about how God does unexpected things. And this is God's promise to David that one of David's sons would eventually build the temple. What do you want to highlight here?
Okay, we'll start with this first icebreaker activity called Scavenger Safari, and we do provide the printables for these. And again, they're not unusual animals, but the game is a little unusual because you're going to give them a checklist of all these animals to find. And you're taking the printable, and there are 2 animals on each sheet. So you're going to fold them in half, and then you kind of show only one side. Mm-hmm. And so as kids are hunting for all of these animals, they're going to be like, wait, I can only find like half of them. And then like some of them will figure out, oh, hey, like the other one's on the back. And so we're just showing how like, hey, wasn't that unexpected? Just a nice little teaser for the big idea.
Amazing. That's cute. And actually, we should probably look at those printables, don't you think?
Yes, there they are.
I love them. Thank you for including a sloth on the very first page. This is my favorite animal, and I appreciate that. Oh my goodness, they're so cute. I love it.
They're so cute.
They're so cute. I need to scroll back up because I'm going to get distracted and look at them all day.
I'm just looking at all the animals.
So that is Scavenger Safari. What else do you want to look at?
And then the next one we have is Honeybee Hive, which is activity right after that. And what we're trying to get kids to do is you're going to tie like a rubber band and like 4 pieces of string to it. And the point is for them to get 4 people to like pull on the rubber band and to kind of use it as this tool to pick up cups. But just to kind of get them to think about it, you're going to give them this thing and have them figure it out, like how does this work. Just a little tip is sometimes depending on how kids are playing with it, the rubber bands will snap, so I would possibly trade that out with either just the thicker ones or just to use like hair ties. I think those would work really well as well.
Yeah, those are a
Yeah.
little less painful when you get snapped by them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because I could just imagine one kid just like letting go and freaking out people.
Oh, yeah, those things hurt. That's
Yeah.
a great tip. Okay, awesome. Love it. What else you want to look at?
Okay. And so more of the Bible story and the big idea, like we mentioned with our friend Brick, which is a really cool name. I wanted to take us to the secondary scripture today. I know we rarely talk about them because they're usually very self-explanatory. But I just wanted to point out this Jesus connection that's made in reading Psalm, which is kind of cool. But we're talking about how God promised David that one of his children, his progeny, if you will, would eventually build a temple that he so wanted to build. And then we're talking about in the Psalm about how like his kingdom will reign forever, and this tribe of Judah language, and how that actually connects to Jesus and how God's promise of establishing his kingdom forever meant all the way to Jesus and beyond. And I think that is an incredible fact that we can point out to kids.
That's awesome. So good. Love it. Love those Jesus connections, and love when the Jesus connection also works with the theme very well. Just
Yes.
what a wonderful treat. Wow. Everything coming together.
Yes. Just a couple more things in this week. Just the next one is that reflection, God in a box. I just thought this was just really thought provoking to ask kids, like, when is a time that you have unintentionally put God in a box?
Mhm.
And that was a really interesting question. Instead of having God do things the way we want them, or have like getting impatient with God for not answering our prayers right away. And those are some things kids can talk about because, patience is a thing, especially, now our kids are just getting things so quickly, like they don't know how to wait for things. And so this would be a really great way to get kids to reflect a little bit on that. And the last thing I want to point out is this activity called Animal Crossing. And I don't know how many of you guys still play Animal Crossing, but it's basically based on the game. And so what it is kids have to build a temple based on the Bible story, but the way they get their materials is from volunteers who are pretending to be trees. They're just going to hold like baskets full of things, and to get the materials they need to go up to a volunteer and just kind of like shake them.
That's
And then
really funny.
I know it's funny. And then the volunteer will like drop a material for them to take back. And so it's kind of based on the game. It's really silly, but I thought it'd be really fun to do.
Yeah,
and just encourage kids not to shake the volunteers like violently.
No, a nice little shake. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Wow, that's really funny. That's also a video I want to see.
Yes.
Please, friend, share with us your funniest moments using Grow. That's really what we want to see. We just want to be entertained.
Please.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so Animal Crossing. Anything else in this week?
Those are just the ones I wanted to highlight, but
Cool.
Still so much more in there that y'all should check out when you can.
Oh my goodness. Sea otter chains. Oh, I love it. I love it all.
I know.
Okay, cool. We looked at these guys already. Let me scroll back through them and admire their cuteness one more time. Wow. Wow. So good. Okay. Wow. So many printables on that one. Okay. Here we go. On to week 4. Oh, nope. Still have more things to scroll through. We get through a lot of stuff, guys. Okay, here we go.
We do. I hope you all use them.
Me too. We have consolidated, maybe you've seen this if you looked at volume 5 so far, but we've consolidated our number of pages. So we still give you all of the same wonderful content, just like in a few less pages for you to print. So there's that. Okay, last week for this series is the big idea is God's love is unchangeable. And we're talking about David and Bathsheba, but, kind of casually glossing over the details of what happened between David and Bathsheba, and focusing, like you said, Linda, more on the love of God, the love that God had for David, even after David did some pretty, shady stuff. So walk us through this. What do you want to highlight?
That was such an understatement.
I know.
He did some shady things.
Just mega sin,
Well, the first activity for this week, I wanted to point out was the one called Wacky Wombats. It's just a cool thing to say.
It is.
Um, Wacky Wombats. And it's a game of musical chairs, but instead of sitting down on a chair, you have to call out a body part, and then they have to put that body part on the chair. So it's like finger, and then they have to put their finger. And if they don't get a chair, or if they put the wrong body part, then they're out of the game. And I just thought it was cool. So the takeaway here is that even though the elements of the game change than what they're used to, the game is still the same. You know, if you don't get a chair, you're out. And so we're talking about how even when circumstances might change, certain things don't. And we're going to lead up to the fact that God's love is the one thing that remains constant.
Nice. That's
I know,
cute.
I love that. It's really cute.
Love it too. Ooh, Sea Lion Changeroo. I love these titles.
These names are really good.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, let's move on to the teaching in the so what section. I just wanted to emphasize just how you can just read these scripts, like just read all of these bullet points, and it just becomes a lesson. And I think this is just written in a way that makes the story a little bit more palpable for kids, and or palatable for kids, I should say. And I really appreciate that. I mean, the story itself is not explicit. It doesn't say like, and then God gave David a warm embrace or anything like that. But we know that God didn't abandon David. And for those of us Bible scholars, you know that David actually did have some major consequences of his sin. However, God didn't abandon him. And in fact, God kept the promises he made to him. And I think that's very important to highlight for the kids.
Yeah. And the reason that we kind of structure our curriculum the way that we do, you'll see it's kind of like this hybrid between an outline, but also like a transcript. And the idea here is that, especially in these like situations where you're like, oh, I want to be careful with how I word these things. Our goal is to give you all the words that you need, if that is what you're looking for. But if you just want the structure of the lessons and you don't really care, like you're confident in your own phrasing and your own ability to explain it, then that's cool too. You can just use the structure. So hopefully this will give you an idea, but of course, as with everything with Grow, don't feel like handcuffed to needing to say every single word. You don't have to memorize this lesson word for word. This is just a guide. But if you are stuck on the language, feel free to use it word for word if you want to.
Yes, please do.
So cool. All right. So that's the teaching. Then we're into the big idea. What else do you want to look at?
Well, we can scroll down to the now what section. We have a couple things there. And the now what section is where we do most of our application for kids. And so this first reflection with optical illusions is really cool. You guys have probably all seen it, where everyone looks at the same image, but sometimes it's a duck, sometimes it's a bunny, sometimes it's a young woman, or sometimes it's an old woman, and sometimes it's a face, and sometimes it's a vase. And I sound like a Dr. Seuss book. And so we just like how these optical illusions are leading kids to think about perspective, and how things can change. So many things can change again, but God's love is constant, and that doesn't change. And I think just a lot of the talking points, like I was talking about, that are included in this reflection module are really good. And we would want to share that with the kids, especially because in this particular module, we're talking about how when things happen to you, you can kind of change the way you react. But we also put in a module, like if someone is hurting you, like, you know, you have to tell people. And we just added that note in there because we know that we don't want to just teach like forgive everybody and love everybody, because, you know, our grownups need to actually be responsible, and they can't do anything that's considered even remotely like abuse. So.
Yeah, that's a great note. That's something that our team talks a lot about behind the scenes is, you know, there's a lot of stories in scripture that, you know, people are not treated with love and compassion and care. People are treated in ways that we would consider to be abusive and dangerous. And it is really, really important to help kids distinguish between what is safe and what is dangerous, and when they need to tell a grown up. So I know it's like sometimes we just think, oh, we just need to teach kids the Bible, but I think we all know that there's more to pastoring a kid than just that. We need to help them kind of make sure that they're safe and that we're taking care of them in more ways than just spiritually. So I'm really glad that that note is in there. That is awesome. Cool. Anything else on this week, Linda?
Yeah, just one last thing. We have an activity called Weird Hybrids.
Good.
And
Great.
we're having, right, the name already just says it all.
Mhm.
We're having kids try to, I think they're trying to create a picture of what a hybrid animal will look like. So you'll just write like two animals and they'll just have to figure it out. Like how would they do it? Kind of like our coloring page friends. I just want to encourage you, if you have time in your ministry, just kind of like, okay, we're just waiting for parents to pick them up, or you just want to incorporate this. I think we recommended this game during our Wait for It series back in December, but check out Chick-a-Pig and Chick-a-Piglets for the littles, because that is a game full of weird animal hybrids, and I think your kids will enjoy that. And if anything, you can use the cards from there for this activity. So I think it'll be fun.
Amazing. That is a great tip. So good.
We love board games.
We do love board games. My board game collection is almost embarrassing. It's like a little too extensive. Okay. So that is the end of week 4. Oh my goodness. What is this sweet little turtle pig bird bat?
Armadillo thing.
Armadillo. Yeah. I like him. He is very cute. So good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there we go. We just walked all the way through Unusual. And, shout out to our friend, Dwayne Reimer, who I saw has already been teasing, possibly posting some of his free Unusual themed goodies, little extras that Dwayne makes. So feel free to take advantage of those if you're in the Facebook group. They are great. And it is so nice of him to make those things for us.
I also have to point out that this coloring page that you're on right now,
Yeah.
I love that Bathsheba is not taking a bath.
Yeah.
I just think that is so out of the box. I love it.
It is very out of the box. That would be a weird coloring page to give to a child. So I'm also glad we did not do a coloring page of Bathsheba taking a bath.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
And then Uriah, who we usually never see on our coloring
Yeah.
page, look at him. He's just sleeping outside the palace gate. And I love that.
It's nice to see Uriah. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
How wonderful. Amazing. Well, we did it. That was Unusual. So friends, hopefully that gave you a little sneak peek into what the series is all about, gave you some ideas, some strategies for how to teach these ideas a little bit more effectively to kids. But now what we want to do is we want to flip over to volume 5, because Unusual is our last series, at least our last recommended series. Of course, with Grow, you can teach our series in any order that you want, but it's the last scheduled series for volume 4. And volume 5 begins this August, or whenever you want, but some people will be starting this August. So what we wanted to do today is to just walk you through just really briefly all of the teaching series that are coming in volume 5. We will be kind of explaining more about these throughout the school year, but we just wanted to give you a little teaser for now. So if you're not familiar with the Grow Kids scope and sequence, what we do is every year we spend 6 months in the Old Testament and 6 months in the New Testament. The way that we divide that up is we begin our New Testament adventure with Christmas, because that's when Jesus was born and when the New Testament begins. And then we spend 6 months, which takes us all the way through Easter plus a month. So we do Easter, then we kind of talk about the early church. And that ends our 6 months in the New Testament, and we go back to the Old Testament for 6 months. And then we have kind of a 3-year scope and sequence that we're looking at. So over the course of 3 years, we hit every major Old Testament Bible story in the course of 3 years. And let's see, for this, at the beginning of volume 5, we're starting kind of right in the midst of Solomon. So as you know, we just finished out the series talking about David. Solomon comes next. So that is what our next chronological series is going to be about. And so we're doing a series that is called Famous. And here is a little tip. If your church is using Grow Kids, Grow Students, and now Grow Groups, which is our adult small group curriculum, the month of August, actually all 3 of those curriculum are handling some of the same stories and same ideas. We are all looking at the Old Testament kings together in some slightly different ways, obviously, because, for different age groups, we need to focus on different things. But we will all be kind of focusing on the Old Testament kings at the same time. So Linda, tell us about the series called Famous and what we're talking about.
Okay, great. I honestly love that we are picking up with Solomon in August. If you are following our recommended track, the continuity will make you really happy because we're really picking up right where July left us. And with the story of David and Bathsheba, and we're talking about what David did and how God didn't abandon him. God still loved him. Hooray. But then we're also talking about like kind of the second half of that, where the prophet Nathan comes to David, and that's where we start the famous series. So Nathan is coming and telling um, David, like, hey, what you did was wrong. Here's a story about some sheep. Hope you'll get it. And so we're going through, and then that's kind of like the start of Solomon's life, like kind of. And so we start out this series called Famous. We're pretending we're following the story of these famous royals, and that's why it has this kind of red carpet celebrity theme happening. And so if you look throughout the series, we do a lot of like homages to Hollywood and like limo rides and things. So I think you guys would really enjoy this. We did talk a lot about in our team about how this might be a little bit above the heads of preschoolers because we do have a preschool track for this as well. And so I think the preschool version is written really well. But for those of you who are feeling a little apprehensive, like kids, they have their own celebrity circles in YouTube and they know singers and things. And so I think it can be doable for sure in preschool as well.
So great. Barney was my favorite celebrity when I was a preschooler. So
Oh, you loved Barney.
he was like a little
That
scary, but I
is,
really liked him. I liked
I
Barney
think,
and Salty the Singing Songbook.
oh no, oh
Quite,
no. You've had some really scary celebrity role
I
models.
know. Just people in scary costumes. That was my jam, I guess, as a preschooler.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers was my jam.
That's more wholesome, I think. I don't know why I didn't latch on to Mr. Rogers, but yeah. Amazing. So that is the month of August, or whenever you feel like teaching it. After that, we're gonna move. We're still kind of talking about Solomon, but we're talking about Proverbs, and we're gonna get really specific, not on the stories of Solomon, but on the Proverbs that Solomon wrote. And so we're spending the whole month talking about wisdom. And again, I'll kind of just give you the correlation between students and adults. For students and adults, we are talking actually about the book of James. So we've got a little deviation here. But the thing that is interesting about all three, kids, students, and adults, is that we're all talking about some really practical wisdom from scripture. So while kids is focusing on Proverbs, the book of James is kind of the New Testament version of giving us some really practical, simple commands for how to be more like Jesus. So that's what the older folks will be doing. So Linda, what in the world? It looks like we've got some like a pirate theme here. What does this have to do with wisdom?
Yeah, that's a very cool, good question. Yes, this series is called Choose Your Own Adventure, and we're talking to kids about how wisdom is a choice you make. It's not something you're naturally born with, and only some people are wise. And we can learn through scripture how they can choose the more wise things. And so each week, our big ideas are focusing on like, I can be wise by, and like choosing to do such and such. And I think that's really great. And the reason why this theme is tropical pirates, and we chose tropical pirates because they just seem more laid back. They're
Yeah.
like not as intense.
Mhm.
Tropical pirates, because pirates often make some not so great choices. And pirates are kind of willy-nilly and they do whatever they want. And that is not the best way to do things. And God wants us to do certain things in ways that are more wise. And so that's what we're talking about in the month of September, if you choose to do it in September or whenever.
I love it. That's great. Then in October, we're doing a series called Big and Small. And this one is kind of like a Dr. Seuss type of aesthetic. And we're talking about big things and small things and kind of this fun contrast between big and small. And in this whole month, we're focusing on the story of Job. So what is that connection, Linda, between the topic and the theme?
Yes, I'm really excited. We're doing a series on Job because that's a really tough thing to talk to kids about. Like, look how great this man was, and then he got everything taken away from him. So it's a big one, hence the word big and small. And this kind of whimsical theme is going to help make it a little less of a downer, I suppose. But what we're doing is we're connecting with the fact that Job and just how we don't understand a lot of what's going on in the book of Job. And God never, if you read it, God never explains why he does all those things and why that happened to Job. But we're having kids get comfortable with the idea that that's okay, that we don't know. We just have to trust that ultimately God is in control. God looks out for us. God takes care of us. And God gives us space to have feelings. Like those are okay too. And so we talk about big feelings and even small feelings. And it's a really great series, just packed with things for kids. I love that.
Love that. So after Job comes a series on the prophets, and this is a series called Played It. And I'm really excited about this theme. It's kind of like a cooking show kind of theme. But Linda, we're going to need you to explain to us, what prophets have to do with the cooking show, because I don't think they had cooking shows back when the prophets were around. I could be mistaken, but.
Are you sure? I feel like we can put together an Old Testament cooking show.
Yeah.
With endless supplies and all the things. Yeah, we decided on this theme of Played It, kind of like this cooking show theme for the prophets, because each of the prophets, like we are leading up to Advent and Christmas. So a lot of the prophets are kind of setting the stage for the Savior to come. And so there's a lot of preparation that goes into cooking a meal. And I think that's kind of what we wanted to maximize on. And also, like each of the stories in this particular series is kind of like how God was preparing the prophets themselves, like how Hannah was praying for Samuel to be born and how Samuel hears the voice of God. And it's just really cool the way that these things all tie in together. And also, this series is just chock full of the best food puns. And like it's such a shame that it's only written for your viewing eyes, because they're amazingly good.
That is amazing. I think puns are the spiritual gift of this team. So that is great. I'm very excited about that. Super cool connection with the theme. I love that a ton. And it's a really nice, like concrete kind of theme for a more abstract idea. Like sometimes the prophet stories can be a little abstract because, like you said, it's all about just preparing for something that hasn't happened yet. So that's a really cool way to kind of explain that and make it real for kids. So that ends kind of our first block of Old Testament stuff. And then in the month of December is when we switch over to the New Testament. So we'll kind of go through these a little bit more quickly because we're going to, it's kind of far away. You're not worried about Christmas just yet, but we'll get there. So December, we're talking about Christmas, of course, and this is Joy to the World. Anything you want to say about this one?
Oh, just that it's going to be a travel trip around the world, as the name suggests, Joy to the World. And we're just talking about why Jesus came, and it was for the whole world. And it's not just our tiny little microcosm of a church, like it's for the whole world, and how good news was for everyone. So I think you'll enjoy all of the different countries that we talk about. And I think it's really fun. And I think our writers did it in a very sensitive way. So I love that too.
So good. Then in January, we're talking about Jesus' early life and ministry. And this is A Day at the Museum. What's this have to do with Jesus?
Yeah, so this one we're talking about how Jesus helped everyone kind of experience things in, we were talking about different learning styles earlier, but just in all these different ways. And so each of the big ideas, we're talking about the different senses, which is kind of cool. And so we're like, we can like get a taste of God's miracles or God's power or something like that. And so A Day at the Museum, where you go to a museum, especially like the ones where it's like all hands-on experience, we're teaching kids about how to experience God and experience the stories that Jesus taught.
So good. That's going to be a fun one. Is that a 5-weeker? One for each
event? It is. Yes.
I'm into it. So great.
Yeah, we couldn't really get smell in there. That was a tough one. It's like you can smell like Jesus. So I think we landed with something like following Jesus makes you stand out. So like, really strong smells make you stand out.
Exactly. Yeah. That's wonderful. That's a good compromise. I'm into it. So then we have in the month of February, we have a series called Opposite Day where we're talking about Jesus teaching. And at first you might think, oh, look, it's a tropical theme, just like September. But no, those are snowmen on that beach because this series theme is all about things that are opposite, which is really fun. And we're excited to see how you guys decorate for this. And the ideas we gave you are, I think, very fun. So what is this, Linda? What is so opposite about Jesus?
Yeah, I mean, Jesus, we talked earlier about how God does things in unusual ways, but sometimes Jesus taught in ways that were just completely countercultural and counterintuitive to what people back then thought, or even what we think now. And so some of the things that Jesus taught, like, for example, the easiest thing is like to love your enemies, right? That is like as opposite as it gets. And we're
Mhm.
talking about lessons like that, about how the things that Jesus taught might seem like they're opposites, but they're not. And you'll see why when we go deeper into the lesson. So it's great. I
Amazing.
think we were inspired by Olaf from Frozen in this a lot.
I mean, we're always inspired by Olaf from Frozen.
This is true.
He's an inspirational
He's
figure.
our role model. For some reason, we like these characters that are not human.
Yeah, you're right. We do. We are into that. That's great. Amazing. Then in the month of March, we're talking about Jesus ministry. And this is a series called Page Turner, which I'm really into because it's very bookish. And,
Mhm.
I love a book. Talk to us about this one, Linda.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that. It's kind of like an adventure book. And so this series is very unique in that each of the modules are written like you're kind of going through an adventure book. So each module has like these really cool descriptions that you can read. And so it's kind of like you just stepped into an adventure book and you're living it out in real life. And the reason why it's called Page Turner is because, the Bible is a page turner. Like, there are so many things in the ministry of Jesus that are really exciting that we can't just gloss over. We have to live it within the pages of the book.
So good. That's going to be a good one.
Mhm.
Then for Easter, we have a series called Did You Know? And this is like a trivia show theme, right?
Yeah, it's like a retro game show theme. This is
Nice.
cool.
That's going to
Yeah.
be fun. So we're going to like learn some things that maybe we didn't know about Jesus or about Easter. That's going to be super fun. And then in the month of May, this will be our last month in the New Testament for volume 5. And we'll be looking at the early church. And this is a series called The Messengers. And I mean, we're talking about evangelism here, right, Linda?
Yes, absolutely. And about how the apostles were messengers for God, delivering messages all over the world. And it's great because, after spending over a year in quarantine and with the pandemic and stuff, kids are a lot more exposed to deliveries than they were before, I believe. So they'll totally resonate with all the things we talk about in here, like everything from like Uber Eats to Amazon packages, like it's all in there.
So good. Yeah, that's cute. When we were first brainstorming this, we were like, we want to do a series that's themed around the mail. We're like, is that cool enough? We think it's cool enough. Guys, it's cool enough. Okay. We liked
It
it.
is
It
cool.
turned
And
out
it's like kind of retro because we talk about
Mhm.
snail mail.
Yeah.
And I think there's even a reference to like carrier pigeons. Like, we're
Oh,
all over
perfect.
the place, like
Good.
every kind of messengering.
Amazing. That is a joy. And then for June and July, we're flipping back to the Old Testament and picking up where we left off. So we left off with the prophets. Then in the month of June, we're doing the story of Ruth. And this is a theme that's kind of like storybook, like fairy tale. So it's called Ever After. But Linda, we were very explicit with this. This is not like an overly girly kind of fairy tale. Because even though it's
No.
a story about Ruth, doesn't mean it is like a series just for girls. So talk to us about this one.
Yeah, I mean, like if you wanted to dichotomize it, I guess like Page Turner is more like that epic boyish
Mhm.
adventure and I mean, at a glance, that's what it looks like in Ever
Yeah.
After. It's like the Disney fairy tale, but it's not. And we like we were intentional about getting eyes on this that were not like, all female contributors. Like we had some like pretty brusque guys on there as well, just to edit them to make sure that it's appealing to like a wider range of kids. And it's great because, yeah, I mean, if you look at the graphic, it just looks like, oh, it's just like an enchanted forest. But we're talking about how the story of Ruth is kind of like a real life fairy tale. And fairy tales, we don't mean like just Disney princesses. We mean like even like all the folk tales you grew up with, just all of these stories that have these wonderful happy endings. But hey, there's like a real one in the Bible, like that actually happened. And I think that's kind of cool to talk about.
Amazing. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And then the final series for volume 5, we're talking about Elijah and Elisha, but mostly Elisha. And the series is called Up in the Air. And Linda, what does this have to do with our subject besides the fact that Elijah gets taken up into the air during week 1?
It's possible that was our main catalyst for this. But what it is we wanted to link the story of Elisha to Dreamers, just about just disguised the limit with the things that you can do, because Elisha, he wanted that inheritance from Elijah as he left. He's like, I want a double portion of your blessing. Like he wanted to do what Elijah did. And we read that he did all those things and possibly even more. And so we're talking through the stories of Elisha, and they tend to be kind of small. They're not as descriptive, but we also pair them with like more contemporary examples of other dreamers, other people who did big things, and how kids can also do that too.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be so good. Friends, we are so excited for Volume 5. It is the best one yet. We have just so much fun stuff in store for you. We're super excited for you to see it. Thank you so much for all of your feedback. Every year we implement all of the feedback that you guys are giving us, and we're just excited to see what you think about Volume 5. So friends, that is it for this deep dive. Thank you for going on this little adventure with us, not only to wrap up Volume 4, but to wander into the beginnings of Volume 5. And we are just thankful for you hanging out with us, because we think you're awesome. And we'll be around. If you have any questions, hit us up, tag Linda, leave her some questions if you need to. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.